無常人人未妙法百千万語難遭遇我今見聞徳十字願下如来真実義無常人人未妙法百千万語難遭遇我今見聞徳十字願下如来真実義無常人人未妙法百千万語難遭遇我今見聞徳十字願下如来真実義Hello everybody. Today I'm talking about the third out of four ways of bodhisattvas to relate to all living beings. The Japanese title of the chapter is Bodaisatta-Shishoho. Bodhisatta stands for Bodhisattva. Shi means four. Sho means to embrace something. And ho is a way. So four ways of embracing, four ways of making contact. Or Nishijima in his translation, I think he's talking about social relations. So four ways of bodhisattvas to relate to society. Although here Dogen does not only speak about human society, but of all living beings. And today it's about the third out of the four, which Nishijima translates as helpful conduct. The first one was giving, free giving, and the second was words of love or kind speech in the translation of Nishijima. And the other day, Brett Warner in America did a video on love in Buddhism. And he said correctly that Buddhists don't use the word love so often. When we talk about what Christians would call love, usually in Buddhism you talk about compassion. And when the word love is used, often it's done in a negative sense, like clinging, attachment, or also wanting to have something, wanting to possess something, wanting to control something. In such cases, the word love or ai in Japanese is used. While if we talk about compassion in Japanese, the word would be jihi. And there's very few cases I can think of in, for example, the Shobo Genzo, where the word ai, love, is used in a positive sense. And aigo is one of those. Maybe the only one I can think of right now, where Dogen Zenji is using the word I in a positive sense. Anyway, today it's not about aigo, I talked about that last month, but ligyo, which Nishijima translates as helpful conduct. Let me read the translation of Nishijima Roshi and Mike Cross. Helpful conduct means utilizing skillful means to benefit living beings, high or low. And with high or low, I think he means maybe also in human society, but also in Buddhism, you have this teaching of transmigration in 6 realms. From the top are the heavens, and hell is at the bottom. And we're kind of traveling through these 6 realms, and to help those in the heavens who have very special kind of suffering. And when 800 years ago people talked about beings in heaven, maybe in their mind they were thinking about people like us today. For example, me here sitting in the city on a sofa, having an iPhone, being connected to the internet, having a convenience store around the corner, being protected from the heat in the summer, but also the cold of the winter. Those people like me are almost living in heaven, but they're still suffering. How do you address this kind of suffering? Down to people in hell, or the hungry ghosts, who are always hungry, thirsty, but whatever you give them, they can't digest it. It doesn't pass through their throat. So bodhisattvas have to think of ways to help being in all kinds of situations. I lost half of my glasses, which is also a form of suffering, also a form of dukkha when you have only half of your glasses. Be that as it may, bodhisattvas try to benefit living beings, high or low, for example, by looking into the distant and near future and employing expedient methods to benefit them. So what is translated as skillful means before, and expedient methods here are 2 different words, but basically Dogen Zenji is aiming, I think, at the same thing. You use, in Japanese you would say ano te kono te, this hand, that hand, your feet. You use, like Avalokiteshvara has thousands of hands with thousands of tools. You use this tool, you use that tool, you try it in this way, you try it in that way, depending on the time, depending on the situation, depending on the person you are dealing with. And here he also says, looking into the distant and near future. So you don't only think about short-term effects, results. Of course, you also think about those, but you also have to think long-term. You have to think short and long-term is the point here. You need to think short-term and long-term when you make decisions. People have taken pity on stricken turtles and taken care of sick sparrows. When they saw the stricken turtle and the sick sparrow, they did not seek any reward from the turtle and the sparrow. They were motivated solely by helpful conduct itself. You need a little background information, and I think also Nishijima Roshi gives you some background information in the footnotes. Basically, Dogen Zenji is referring to 2 tales from old China here. In the first one, it's a 9-year-old boy who sees a sparrow that has been attacked by some other bigger bird. The sparrow is injured and lying somewhere on the ground, and ants and other insects start to feed on the sparrow who is close to dying. And the boy takes pity with the sparrow and takes him home. And at home for 100 days he feeds the bird chrysanthemum leaves. And probably these chrysanthemum leaves are not easy to get, but maybe somebody told him that that would be a good medicine for the bird, and it works. After 100 days of feeding on these chrysanthemum leaves, the bird gets healthy again, he can fly again, and flies off. And later, the boy himself gets one of the, well, 3 most important jobs in the country. And not only the boy, but also his son and his grandson and his grand-grandson. So for 4 generations in the family, people succeed in rising to the highest position in China. And the point is, well, that was because this sparrow was sent from God, basically. And he returned the favor that was given to him as a bird by helping the family. And the other story basically goes in the same direction. It was a man who, somewhere in town, I don't know about China, but I think this kind of thing still exists in Thailand and maybe other South Asian countries, maybe also in India, that people catch fish or turtles or birds, keep them in cages, and then demand money from strangers so that they release these birds or fish, which is a strange idea, because why would anybody want to pay money for them to release these birds or fish that they took hostage, so to speak? If somebody took my children hostage and they wanted money so that they give me my children back, then maybe I would think about maybe I should pay them. Although, of course, they are breaking the law. But in the case of fish or birds, why would I have to pay them money so that they release them? But the idea behind them is kind of this Buddhist or maybe also Hinduist idea that you create, how do you say, virtue, merit. You can accumulate merit by releasing these birds. So I pay them, say, 100 yen, they release the birds, and I will receive some merit. So if I think that the merit I receive from releasing the turtle or the bird exceeds the 100 yen, then I might pay these people and be happy that I received some merit. Anyway, so the guy, he saw this turtle and thought, I need to release the turtle. He gave the guy who had caught the turtle some money and released the turtle into the river. And when the turtle swam down the river, it, how do you say, turned its neck to the left 3 times to say, well, goodbye, thank you that you helped me. And then it disappeared. And the point Dogen Zenji is making here, when the man released the turtle, he didn't even think about getting a reward. It was not that he hoped that later he will get a reward. And later he also got an important position. I think he became governor of the area where he lived. And as the governor, he had to have a seal, as people today still use in China and Japan. Everybody has their personal seal, and if you have an important job, maybe you have a special seal for that job. And by coincidence, the governor had the seal of a turtle. The turtle was part of the symbol. So when the person became the governor, he had a new seal carved for himself with a turtle, with a picture of the turtle. But when the seal, how do you say, was made by, how do you say, an expert, a master of carving, For some reason, the turtle didn't look the way he had expected. He wanted the turtle with a straight neck, but the neck of the turtle was turned left. So he asked the guy who made the seal, why did you make it the way? And he said, I didn't make it that way. It must have happened when we, how do you say, burned it. Probably it was made of metal. So when the metal was, how do you say, heated or so, must have happened. I will make it again. Second time. But the second time again, the turtle turned out like this. And the third time again. And at that point, the person realized, oh, this is a sign by the turtle. That's exactly the turtle that a couple of decades ago I freed out of the cage. So basically the point of these two stories is when you help somebody, although maybe at some point you will also benefit from it. At the point when you take that sparrow home with you, or at the point where you say, I have to free this turtle, you don't think about that. You have no other way. You do it naturally. It's an inner impulse. It's not this, if I pay 100 yen now, maybe I get 10 millions back later. If I buy some strange cryptocurrency now, maybe I will make a huge profit in the future. That's not the kind of, this kind of, how do you say, calculation doesn't enter into play when we talk about helpful conduct. It's not some kind of crypto investment that we're talking about here. Somehow it's really difficult to see with these glasses after they're broken, but when they saw the stricken turtle and the sick sparrow, they did not seek any reward from the turtle and the sparrow. They were motivated solely by helpful conduct itself. So they had no other choice than doing so. They had no other choice. Stupid people think that if we put the benefit of others first, our own benefit will be eliminated. So in the case of a game, do you call those zero-sum games? If there's only winning or losing, if I let the other win, that means that I lose. If in the game I give you $10, then I lose $10. Whatever I do for you is something that I lose. And that's how we usually think about not only the games that we play, but the game that we call life. Whatever I do for others is something that I lose. And Dogen Zenji says here that's not the case. That's how stupid people think. That's how stupid people think. Stupid people think that if we put the benefit of others first, our own benefit will be eliminated. This is not true. Helpful conduct is the whole Dharma, the whole Dharma. In the original Japanese here it says Ippo, one Dharma. One Dharma would be a more literal translation. There's only one Dharma here. There's only one side. When we talk about winners and losers, there are two sides. So which side do you want to belong to? Do you want to be one of the winners? Or do you want to be one of the losers? If you don't want to be a loser, then make sure that you don't give away any of your points. Make sure that you collect points. Don't give away points. But Dogen Zenji says here, there are not two sides here. If you see that sparrow suffering, you are suffering. If you help the sparrow, you're helping yourself. There's only one side. It's a win-win relationship, as we would say today. If you liberate the turtle, it helps you to liberate. You are liberated the moment you liberate the turtle. If you don't help the turtle, you don't help yourself. So there's no other way than helping the turtle, helping the sparrow, helping yourself. Otherwise, you would suffer. Why do you help the other person? Because if you wouldn't help them, you would suffer. That's your motivation. You don't want to suffer. That's why you help others. Because if they suffer, you suffer. And only a stupid person would think that if I help others, then I suffer. I suffer more. And if I let others suffer, then I suffer less. That's only the case if you think about life as a zero-sum game, so to speak. You can either win or you lose. If I win, you lose. If you win, I lose. But basically, that's the state of samsara. That's the state of samsara. And the funny thing is that even though we try to collect points and points and points, we still, at the end of the day, have the feeling that I'm still a loser. I don't have as many points as Elon Musk. And who knows if Elon Musk is really in nirvana. Maybe not. Probably not. Anyway, stupid people think that if we put the benefit of others first, our own benefit will be eliminated. This is not true. Helpful conduct is the whole Dharma, one Dharma. There's only one side to the whole thing. Either we all win together or we all lose together. It universally benefits self and others because there's no separation between self and others here. The man of the past who bound his hair 3 times in the course of one bath and who spat out his food 3 times in the course of one meal solely had a mind to help others. That's also the story of some old king or something. He was taking a bath at the end of the day. Finally, he had time to relax. But somebody, one of his ministers, also had a question. Sorry, king, I have a question. So the king bound his hair, got out of the bath, wore his bathrobe and answered to that minister, gave answers to his questions. And then a couple of minutes ago, when he was again in his bath, second question, I have another question. Do you have another minute for me? So he gets out of the bath again, puts his hair together again, gets into the bathrobe. And that happened 3 times altogether. And the same time at dinner. Finally, he could sit down at the table and eat. But when he had his mouth full, somebody wanted some advice from him. So he spat out the meal and answered. And he did it a second time. He did it 3 times. Why did he do it? Well, because somebody needed advice. Somebody had a question. So he gave him the answer. And of course, that's also what we practice in Antaji, maybe in the middle of a session. And we enjoy the silence, and it's maybe in the middle of a meal at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe at 9 in the morning. Session meal times are kind of strange meal times. The people that call Antaji at that time, they're not aware that that's a session. They're not aware it's in the middle of the meal, and still you get up. Moshi moshi Antaji desu. You answer whatever questions they have. Why do you do it? Well, because somebody has a question. Somebody is calling. Somebody is calling, so you answer them. Let me continue for a little bit more. There was never a question that he might not teach them just because they were the people of a foreign land. Also in Antaji, there's Japanese, there's non-Japanese. It's not that you would teach only the Japanese and not the non-Japanese, but also the other thing should not be the case that the non-Japanese get a special treatment because they're non-Japanese and so they came from far away. So now we need to treat them in the special way. You treat people the same. You treat people the same. Because there was never a question that he might not teach them just because they were the people of a foreign land. So we should benefit friends and foes equally. Or maybe we shouldn't divide between friends and foes in the first place. We should benefit friends and foes equally, and we should benefit ourselves and others alike. Because when you benefit others, you're benefiting yourself. If we realize this state of mind, the truth that helpful conduct naturally neither regresses nor deviates, which will be helpfully enacted, even in grass, trees, wind, and water. So here he says that when you have this realization, then this helpful conduct neither regresses nor deviates and will be enacted even in grass, trees, wind, and water. We should solely endeavor to save the foolish. The way I read this, there's a quote by Sawaki Roshi, although I could imagine that others have said the same. And the quote goes more or less like this. The sun gives itself. The sun gives sunlight. The sun burns and gives all of its energy to this planet Earth and to all the other planets. On this planet, the clouds give themselves in the form of rain. The earth, soil, gives its nutritions to the plants. The plants give themselves. The animals give themselves, or sometimes they are taken by hunters, but in this way, everything in this universe gives itself. And the sun doesn't expect anything in return for its energy. The clouds don't charge us for the rain that they send us. The earth doesn't charge anybody for the nutritions that we suck out of the earth. The plants. Imagine you would have to pay the earth for all the plants, the vegetables you ate. So we have been living until today because of the free giving from the universe. We've been enjoying a free lunch and a free breakfast and a free dinner for our whole life. For our whole life. Even this body we received from our parents who took good care of it and the teachers at school. When we think about it, we wouldn't be here because of this helpful conduct, unconditional giving from the side of the others. So in my view, it's not that once we practice helpful conduct, we will also help mountains and rivers to do this, but rather it's more the other way around. Once we realize that we've been living because, thanks to the helpful conduct of the whole universe, sun and moon and stars, this planet, the plants, the animals, the other people that helped us, we've been enjoying a free lunch for a whole life, that we cannot but also say, then let me also be part of this. Please let me also be part of this. How come that we are so reluctant to give something in return? Is basically what Sawaki Roshi says at the end of this quote. The sun gives, the clouds gives, the earth gives, plants give. It's only us human beings that never want to give, because we think whatever I give is something that I lose. Imagine that the sun would think that way. Imagine that the earth would think that way. So once you realize that your whole life you've been the recipient, you've been on the receiving end of free giving and of helpful conduct, you cannot but also wish to be part of this same activity. You want to give something in return. We should solely endeavor to save the foolish. And when he's talking about foolish here, I think he's first of all talking about you, this person here that didn't realize this for so long. How many decades have I eaten this free lunch without even asking myself where the free lunch came from? So saving the foolish means to, first of all, save yourself. Make sure that you don't forget that. The sun is giving, the clouds are giving, the earth are giving, the plants are giving, everything is giving itself to everything else. How come that I'm so, how do you say, stingy? Stingy, is that an English word? That I'm so reluctant to give myself to others. The next of the four ways, the last of the four ways of a bodhisattva to relate to all living beings is in Japanese doji. Doji could also be translated as one thing, same matter. Nishijima translates it as cooperation. Cooperation. Which is a kind of, well, down-to-earth translation. But do means same, and ji can mean a thing, a matter. And Dogen Zenji explains it as cooperation means not being contrary. The character for contrary could also be translated as different. It means to not differ from something else, to not be special, you could say. And when you pass the Vatali Loka, the corridor from where you sit now to the Hondo, there's this calligraphy hanging over the corridor. And there are three characters written there. To be honest, I'm not quite sure how you read them. I once asked somebody and he said that they mean shito ni awazu, to not meet anybody. So when you go over and sit in the Hondo, you sit together with the rest of the Sangha, but you don't meet them there, you don't greet anybody there, but basically when you sit Zazen, you sit alone. It's you, it's your practice. You and you alone sit in the Hondo, even when you sit there with 10 other people. That would be one possibility, but I think it's more likely that it actually means fu-i jin, which means don't differ, or the person that does not differ. When you go to the Hondo, you don't differ anymore. You're not anybody special. You let go of your identity, of the idea who you are. You're just your ordinary self. Or when I say ordinary self, I mean the self that doesn't even have a name, that doesn't even have a gender or a sex or nationality. So when I go to the Hondo, I don't go there as this 57-year-old German guy, male, but I leave all these labels behind. That means to, well, not differ, or here in Nishijima's translation to not be contrary. Cooperation or same thing, practicing the same thing means to let go of differences, to not be different. Stop to differ. Cooperation means not being contrary in Nishijima's translation. It's not being contrary to oneself and not being contrary to others. So you don't differ from yourself, you don't differ from others. A little earlier in the same chapter, when Dogen talked about giving, fuse, he said, giving means to give yourself to yourself, and it means giving others to the others. Normally, when we talk about giving, we say either I give to you or you give to me. But Dogen Zenji says, well, that's only one half. The other half is I give to myself, you give to myself. I am myself, I'm allowed to be completely myself. I don't have to play a role anymore, you could say. When you stop playing a role and you are also allow the other person to just be him or herself without playing a role, then you're giving yourself to yourself, you're giving the other to the other. Or here in this context, you stop differing from yourself. The moment that I play a role, I differ from myself. The moment that you play a role, you are not your true self anymore. So, not differ doesn't mean that I try to imitate you or I force you to be like myself. It doesn't mean that two different things are somehow made equal. But it means that I'm completely myself without trying to be special. I don't have to prove my, how do you say, my originality, my individuality by dyeing my hair or something like that. Getting a new tattoo all over my face. But my wife is doing something there, sorry. It means I'm just myself and I allow you to be completely yourself. And at the bottom of the whole thing is this presence in this moment, what I and everybody else calls the here and now. At the bottom of it all, there's only the presence in the here and now. That remains when you let drop all of the labels and all the names. We never differed from the presence in the here and now. And that's where we connect, so to speak. I will never be you and you will never be me, but I'm not different from the presence in the here and now. You are not different from the presence in the here and now. For example, the human Tathagata identified himself with humanity. Judging from this identification with the human world, we can suppose that he might identify himself with other worlds. When we know cooperation, self and others are oneness. Tathagata is just another way, a word for the Buddha. And when you think about yourself, are you a human being, an ordinary human being, or are you a Buddha, the Tathagata himself? Which one of the two? Probably if you're honest with yourself. Oh, I just realized that I have another pair of glasses here. Am we still connected? I hope so. Are you a Buddha or are you an ordinary human being? Probably, hopefully, I might say, hopefully most of us, if we are honest to ourselves, realize we're just ordinary human beings. There's nothing Buddha-like about myself. Even practicing in Antaiji for several weeks, several months, even after a year, after 3 years, after 5 years, during Zazen, there's all kind of deluded thoughts in your mind. After Zazen, when you try to cooperate with the others, there's always conflicts in the Sangha. So even the Sangha of practitioners that decided that they want to practice deep in the Japanese mountains, at the end of the day, you have to realize we're still ordinary human beings, deluded beings. There's nothing Buddha-like about us. Still, Zen teaches that each single one of us, right from the start, is a Buddha. We don't practice to become Buddhas in the future, after we have some big enlightenment experience, but you are already a Buddha. When you sit on the cushion, there's a Buddha sitting on the cushion. When you are the Tenzo, the Buddha is cooking. When you do Samu, the Buddha is doing Samu. And the question, of course, is how is this possible that this person, who's obviously not a Buddha, is also a Buddha? And in using the words that I just used, you could say, well, the Buddha, that's the presence in the here and now. While the person who has a name and an age, a birthday, nationality, special sex and gender, that's the human being. Are you a human being or are you the Buddha? And the answer is both. Once you have a name, you are this human being. You talk as a human being. You have to act as a human being. But there's also the presence in the here and now. There's also this presence that was there before you had a name. And you, in this moment when you hear my voice, are this presence. The presence of the Buddha manifests at exactly that point. Where you listen and hear. A Buddha is listening right now. So the Tathagata manifests in all of us humans, and not only in humanity, but in other worlds. That means in the heavens and also in hell, everywhere. The Tathagata manifests in this way as the presence of the here and now. And you're not an exception to that. But don't forget that you're also just a human being. Judging from this identification with the human world, we can suppose that he might identify himself with other worlds like heavens and hell. When we know cooperation, self and others are oneness. Doesn't mean that I, Muho, become Echo, for example, the abbot of Antaiji. Echo is Echo and Muho is Muho, and each single one of you is exactly who you are. You cannot live my life, I cannot live your life. You can't even take a shit for me, and I can't take a shit for you. But at the end of the day, we're all living the same Tathagata, or the same Tathagata, the same presence is manifesting in the here and now. So self and others being one doesn't mean that two things that are different become the same, but that these two different things are the manifestation of the same reality. And this reality is called Tathagata or Buddha here. It's the same Buddha. Or maybe as we're talking about bodhisattvas, it would be easier to use the name of Avalokiteshvara. We're different hands, we're different arms, but it's the same Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara that's using these arms. The left arm and the right arm are different, but still they belong to the same Buddha or Bodhisattva. Okay, how about questions now? Anything you would like to ask or share now? If there are no questions or anything you would like to share, it would have been nice if we could have, covered the whole chapter this year, but I think next month there's not going to be a teisho, so the last portion, the last talk on Bodaisatta-Shishoho I would like to give next year. では最後には四愚聖願を唱えましょう。衆生無変聖願の煩悩無尽聖願断訪問無量聖願学仏道無常聖願像衆生無変聖願道煩悩無尽聖願断訪問無量聖願学仏道無常聖願像衆生無変聖願道煩悩無尽聖願断訪問無量聖願学仏道無常聖願像